So last week we started from verse 1, we went to verse 5, and we said, count it all joy when you go through testings. And we understood that that means that we discern, we reckon, we account that this is joy. But joy is not based on the feeling, joy is based on information. James says, for you know that this will result in something. And so we are not people that's fanatical about our situation, but joy is that settled confidence that whatever we're going through is based on information, that my pain is not pointless. We began to understand that God works and has a purpose in all the dealings, and He says, have joy in this, because we also know that the joy of the Lord is our strength, and that strength is based on the information. But James goes on to say, it's not just enough for you to have information, but if any one of you lacks wisdom, he must ask God. And what was wisdom? Wisdom is how to use the knowledge that we have. So you have information that God is great and wonderful and in control. But how do I get past my test and pass my trial? James says, if you lack wisdom, you ask God. So wisdom is to discern and rightfully use the information that you have. And then he says, God is above reproach, meaning God doesn't look down at you and criticize or insult you when you ask Him for something. But He says, go ahead, ask me. Do you remember the illustration of the open book test? Or the surprise test. You come to class and the teacher says, well, here's a surprise test for you. What is the emotion? It will be stressful because you didn't study. But James says, because you know you are prepared. So when the tests come, you know something, that this is not pointless. And so tonight we want to look at verse 6 of James. All right, let's begin. Verse 6, James. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. Verse 8, he is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Once more. But let him ask in faith, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. So now James says, ask wisdom. But he qualifies that to say, it's not just about the what you ask, it's how you ask. And now he says, you have to ask it in what? In faith. And let's take a look at faith. The Greek word there for faith is called pistis, and it means wholehearted attitude of a full and unquestioning committal to and dependence upon God. So faith here is not just enough, beloved, that we just ask God, because anyone can ask God. But James says you have to ask in faith. And you somehow have to just think of Hebrews 11:6 that says, for without faith it is impossible to please God. For He rewards those that comes to Him. But that person that comes to God must first believe that God not just hears, but He is able. The key idea there is that it talks about someone's faithfulness. And I like this picture of faith here, because it talks about someone that has certainty. And I want you to note the one phrase I underline, because I'm going to form a picture for us. It says to remain in one place. Firmness, steadiness. So let's sketch it. Ask in faith. It's not just enough that we ask, but there's a qualification to the way you ask, that every prayer or request must be dripped in faith. And there's one way of looking at faith, that's that wholehearted attitude and confidence that, hang on, God hears me, that He's able to do what concerns me. But there's another picture of faith, I think, that ties in nicely with the picture that James eventually gets to. And that is, faith means that this is someone that is faithful, steady, stable, firm, someone that is seen as in one place. Right. So then, the one who asks in faith have a settled confidence, number one, that God hears. I think sometimes when we say, I'm going to pray about it, we do it because praying seems to be the only other, perhaps best alternative. But it doesn't always just work that way. Anyone can just ask God for anything. But James says there's a way that you have to ask here. You have to ask it in faith. And when we ask, it's no use I pray for the government, but I don't believe anything that I'm praying, and I don't actually believe that He's hearing. I'm just praying for the sake of praying. You hearing what I'm saying? So he's saying when you pray, what? You have to believe that firstly, that this great, mighty, almighty God that holds the stars and names the stars is able to hear your prayer. That doesn't always have all the right tenses, verbs, punctuations, your phrases and grammar is sometimes confused. You're not even sure if you're speaking proper English or Afrikaans. That faith says that God hears that prayer. Because it's not in the content of your grammar. It's in what grips your heart when you pray. Wow, I should write that down. So one, he who prays in faith has the settled confidence that God hears. Number one. And number two, that we have this confidence that He is able. I think sometimes when we ask people to pray, we pray, but where's the hope? When you pray, you have to believe what you are asking for. And it's not that you have faith in your prayer, you have faith in the one that hears your prayer. Because sometimes we walk away and then we say, no, but I prayed about it. You could have prayed, but did you pray in faith? So I think this is becoming very, very striking in the mind of that Jewish Christian, because I think the danger of not asking in faith, we can ask plainly out of formality. So let me explain. And here's the background. We know that these are Jews that got saved from the Jewish system that was hugely based on what? On formality. They had a system and a law and a procedure for pretty much everything. If you read through the laws of Leviticus, there were civil laws, laws on what to eat and what not to eat. So the Jew that's now saved comes, and the danger for him was that he could pray purely out of formality. And also, they were so used to that the high priest used to make intercession on his behalf. So now he comes and now he must pray. This concept of praying to God, sometimes faith could be something foreign. Remember, they depended on what? On the law, on works, not so much on faith. So I think that is why James is saying he must pray in faith. Because sometimes the danger is, if it's not in faith, you can be so formal about it that there's nothing faithful about your prayer. When I mean that someone prays out of mere formality, I mean someone that's simply just doing it to comply. Someone is doing it because there's a regulation, there's a custom, there's a traditional rule in place. You are doing it because it is required. And I think for us, that's a danger. Because I think we know people in different religions that pray based on their regulation. They must pray. The danger for us is it's easy for us to slip into that kind of tradition where we must pray. But at the end of the day, your praying is simply just based on the formality and not on faith. And so you can pray 3 times a day, 5 times a day. But are you actually believing that what you are praying, that the one listens to you, hears you? It's quite different from praying just to walk away and say, I've done a good thing. Remember the legal system in the mind of the audience James is writing to. They can pray and just walk away and say to James, but I've prayed. You know, you check the box. Did you pray today? Yeah, I've prayed today. How many times did you pray? I prayed 3 times today. But James said, the quantity of your prayers is not good enough. It is the quality thereof. Have you prayed in faith? So whether I pray 10 times, 12 times, 15 times, James is saying, listen, that's not really what's important here. It's the fact that you have to pray in faith. The danger is not praying in faith is simply praying out of mere formality. So here's another picture. And that is, again, I want to highlight this because it means that that person that prays with faith is in one place. It is someone that has decided, this is my time, my space, my place, and this is where I'm staying. I'm going to pray. Do you see the picture? Because when we get to the comparison James makes, he compares that with someone that is like a wave. And if you can see just the motion of a wave, it's quite different from someone that is in one place. Is that picture starting to form? One place, praying in faith. Now verse 6 again, it says, with no doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. Diakrino means to be in a critical state of mind. This is what it means to doubt. To lack confidence in, or to be uncertain, to waver, to fluctuate or to hesitate, to be in between, almost like to be in suspense. You are neither here nor there. And sometimes when we pray and we doubt, and faith is not at the forefront of the way we think about our prayers, we can become very critical where we start questioning. And so I want to also make the point, doubt is not the opposite of faith in this particular case. It's not unbelief, but it's someone that is unstable. Remember, pray in faith, the one that stands firm. One place. But then he says, don't doubt. For the one that doubts, he says, wavers. You see the picture? Faith, stable, one place. The one that doubts, enough. Enough. To put it another way, if someone doubts, that person, we would say, has a double mind, a split soul, double loyalty. He wavers. So James is saying, the person that prays and asks God for wisdom, that person won't get wisdom because firstly, he must ask in faith. And faith is the confidence knowing that God hears and God is able, but it is also the person that is stable. The person that's not stable is the person that's neither here nor there. It's the person that's in between. You never know what to get from that kind of person. That is the one that doubts. He is double-minded. It is a picture of someone dividing his mind. This person is the one who is vacillating. Is man net soos 'n golf op en af between two opinions and decisions. He's not quite sure what to do. Now listen to James again. Pray in faith. Faith, one place. The one that doubts, not sure. Not sure. Now, the one that doubts always asks this kind of question. Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? Really? Do you know a person like that? Okay, before we think of someone else, are we like that? Are you sure? This is the person that asks, but he also answers the question by saying, I'm not sure. Are you sure? I think I am. Am I? Am I really? Are you? I don't know. Are you? Are we? Why not? Are you sure? You think you're sure? Do you see? It's vacillating. Never certain of anything. Now, 1 Kings 18:21. Here's a picture from Elijah. Elijah came near to all the people and said, how long will you hesitate? In other words, how long halt he between two opinions? Between two opinions, if the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. But the people did not answer him a word. Elijah said to the people, if you're going to follow God, follow God. If you're going to follow Baal. But make up your mind. All right. Now, this is a person that has a divided heart. And again, I'm pointing you back to where the verse started. Pray in faith. Faith is the person that can stand in one place. And then he goes on to say, for the one that doubts is someone that is divided. This is the person that has a divided loyalty. And is manifest by his indecision and doubting. This is the kind of person that can never make up his or her mind. Can never decide on anything. So to sum it up, this person is fickle. And by fickle, I mean this person changes frequently. Especially as regards to one's loyalties or affections. One day the person feels like this and another day the person feels like that. So James is saying, when you pray, pray in faith. Don't pray out of formality, for the one that goes the formal way ends up being fickle. If. You pray in faith, don't pray out of formality, but make sure that you don't end up being fickle. Someone that changes their minds all the time. And beloved, if we are honest, and you think of a person like that, that's the kind of person that frustrates you the most. It's a kind of person that you never know what to expect. It's the kind of person that you never know, can I actually trust you with anything, because you are not sure of anything. There's a picture for me. And we are only in verse 6. It's like this. It's like the heart of the girl to which a young man once proposed. He said, darling, I want you to know that I love you more than anything else in this world. I want you to marry me. I'm not rich. I don't have a yacht or a Rolls Royce like Johnny Brown, but I do love you with all my heart. She thought for a minute and then replied, I love you with all my heart too, but can you tell me more about Johnny Brown? Right. Someone that is divided is someone that lacks strength to stay. That person is not sure, should I be here or should I be there? That person will never stay in one place. Now, let me go back to where we started, faith. Pray in faith. Faith, when you pray in faith, you stay in one place. You remember? Come on, help me. Help me. One place. Now, a divided heart is someone that lacks strength to stay. That's the one that doubts. So the one that prays, how do you think someone prays that doesn't pray with that kind of faith but with doubt? That person is not even sure in what he or she is praying or asking. Psalm 86 verse 11 says, teach me your way, O Lord. I will walk in your truth. And listen to this, unite my heart to fear your name. So putting the picture together, the man that asks in faith is seen as someone that is consistent and firm, stands in one place. This is the man that asks not out of mere formality, but is the man that asks with doubt, that is seen as fickle, frequently changing and moving around, never being sure or consistent. This man cannot commit. This is the man that takes forever to say, I want you. If I can take the illustration of someone in a relationship. You've been dating for 5 years and the lady is still waiting for him to say or to ask the question, when will you marry me? He is not sure because he's divided. He's not sure to commit because he's just not sure. He's not sure that he's just not sure. That is the picture. He is fickle. He is not sure if he commits because what if something else comes along? What if this doesn't work out? The kind of person that doubts is the kind of person that cannot commit. What is the result? I wanted to find a picture that can somehow capture what James is trying to say. Do you see the waves? And do you see the man in front? James is saying the one that doubts is just like those waves. What do you get from those waves? Any place and everywhere at the same time. But he's saying the one that has faith stands in one place. That can look at the doubts and look at the waves and remain in that position. That is the one that prays in faith. Verse 7. And so here is the result of the one that doubts. Verse 7. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. Beloved, can we just pause for a moment and think about that very, very straightforward statement? He that's like those waves will not receive anything from the Lord. Full stop. So if I am doubting in what I'm saying, if I'm the kind of person that frequently changes my mind about, I'm praying, but I'm not sure if God can, and, is it really God? I'm asking all kinds of people, and I'm not really sure if this is for me. James is saying, you won't receive anything from the Lord if that is your frame of mind. Because your heart is divided. You are not convinced that God is your solution. You are not convinced that God can supply you with what you need. You are not convinced by Him. You still think that your solution, your way out is somewhere else. That's being divided. Now listen to this. Divine wisdom. So remember, he that lacks wisdom, he must ask God. So that is the request. Ask wisdom But wisdom, this kind of wisdom, cannot dwell in a personality so unstable and unable to carry out a determined course of action. Beloved, to put it to you like this, if God wants to give you wisdom, how can He give anyone something that keeps moving around? Okay? So He gives to someone that remains in one place, someone that has a faith fixed on Him that is faithful. That is the kind of person that God answers prayer for and supplies the wisdom. How is it possible that anyone that doubts think that they can receive anything? Because if I can just dramatize it for you, imagine I ask God for something and I'm waiting here but I'm walking over here. What exactly will I receive? Nothing, because I cannot be in one place. So let's again pause. Is this perhaps not the reason why we don't see breakthrough in our prayers? That we're praying because we're Christian. That's not what James is saying. You have to pray because you believe. You have faith. All right. Have you seen this man? It is a man that never commits to anything. It is a man that goes from one relationship or one friendship to another. It is a man that goes from one church to another church, never staying in one place long enough to stick. It is the man that promises and then makes excuses why he could not fulfill the promise. It is the man that says, I will call you tomorrow, I will come to you tomorrow, but never does. Have you seen that man or that woman? That is the one that doubts. And before I want to point my finger at someone else, I have to first point it right back at me and say, I'm that. Now, let me be personal with you. And I shared this with some of our Sunday school and the youth leaders some time ago. I said, I am prone to tell people, I'm praying for you. But I end up not praying. Because we do that, because it's a Christian thing. You know how we do it? Praying for you. Thinking of you, you didn't spare one sentence of prayer for that person. And that was me. And I repented. And so now what I do is, when I think of someone, I try my best to at least send a voice note. Or I try just to send a prayer, say, Lord, I'm thinking of her, whatever she or he is going through, be with her. But I can't say something to you and not do it, because I'm neither here nor there. And in fact, if that's the kind of leader I am, you will never trust me. Look at that person. No one trusts that person. Why do we think that he will receive anything from God? Are we okay? Verse 8. He is double-minded. It's an unstable man. The word there for double-minded can also be translated indecisive, double-souled, as I said. And just to highlight this, God will never give wisdom to the double-minded, because they will not stand still long enough to receive it. Have you noticed James doesn't ask or tell or inform the church to pray that God will take them out of the trial? He says, when you go through it, ask God for wisdom. James never says, ask God to take you out. I don't think that's how God operates. He says, ask God for wisdom to show you what is the way to get through this. How do I deal with this person that's bringing so much anger and resentment in my life? Lord, how do I deal with this situation? I don't know how to answer anymore. I don't know what to do to show myself. He doesn't ask for escape. He asks for one place. I want us maybe just to consider something as I read something to you from John Piper in his book, Don't Waste Your Life. He's talking about people that made a difference, but he's talking about one thing. He says, but we are driven to the same bloody place also by the question of a single passion. The Bible pushes us in this direction. For example, the Apostle Paul said that his life and ministry were riveted on a single aim. I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. I want to share a story with you that John Piper shares about two ladies. Listen to this. The heading is, These Lives and Deaths Were No Tragedy. In April 2000, Ruby Eliasson and Laura Edwards were killed in Cameroon, West Africa. Ruby was over 80. single all her life, she poured it out for one great thing, to make Jesus Christ known among the unreached, the poor and the sick. Laura was a widow, a medical doctor, pushing 80 years old and serving at Ruby's side in Cameroon. The brakes failed, the car went over a cliff, and they were both killed instantly. I asked my congregation, said Piper, was this a tragedy? 2 lives driven by one great passion, namely to be spent in unheralded service to the perishing poor for the glory of Jesus Christ. Even 2 decades after most of their American counterparts had retired to throw away their lives on trifles. No, that is not a tragedy. That is a glory. These lives were not wasted, and these lives were not lost. Mark 8:35 says, whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. Before we respond by singing a song, I want to encourage perhaps those that's elderly or senior amongst us. There's always something to do for God. Though life gets hard, look at what and who He has placed in front of you and do just that you feel so passionate about. It's not always good to do many things. People that left their mark on the world are people that did one great thing. I want to say to our younger people, these are examples of 2 ladies that were over 80 years old, still serving as missionaries. What excuses do you have? What hinders us from throwing ourselves just with one passion to serve God in all that we have? Beloved, I want to invite us, and this is my encouragement as we sing the song. I want us to sing that song, He is able, more than able. I think you know it. And if there's prayers that you perhaps think you want to re-pray, now that we know that we pray in faith, I want you to do that. But use the song as our way to respond to God, knowing that He is able, more than able, to accomplish what concerns me today. Amen.